Okay, section 2.6.2. We are now going to start talking about methods. And now, methods is very similar to kind of the concept of a function, but functions themselves are particular, or sorry, the methods are particular to the shapes themselves. So, like, if we're calling up a shape, right, and we've defined a shape with a certain name, then we can actually manipulate these shapes and do certain things with them. That methods with methods that are actually pre-built into our CMUCS Academy itself. You'll notice here that it talks about the fact of make sure you use the shape name to basically call up the method. You put the shape name, you put period, and then you put that method, and then you're going to have some arguments of what you actually need to do to be able to utilize that method. So even if there is no arguments to pass into the method itself, then we use open and close parentheses just to state that we're actually using that method, that we're actually doing something with it, manipulating something with it. Because if you don't use those parentheses, then you're actually not going to use the method itself, right? So we're going to start out, and I am going to use the first two methods to the front and to back, because this actually takes a shape and it will actually put it all the way to the front or all the way to the back. So, like, when we're drawing shapes, they go in a specific order. You draw one, then you draw the next one. The next one goes on top of the one that you already drawn, and so on and so forth. Well, we can actually take one of those shapes and pull it all the way to the front, so it's on top of everything, or push it all the way to the back, so it's underneath everything, right? So, if we run this right here, in this conditional, every time we push the mouse button, it's either going to push the star all the way to the back if it's in the front, or all the way to the front if it's in the back. So every time we click the mouse, we're moving the star back and forth in front of the oval and rectangle, and behind the oval and rectangle, back and forth, right? So those two methods, to the front and to back, are basically methods that we can actually use with any shape value whatsoever, so we can pull it all the way to the front, all the way to the back. Doesn't matter how many shapes we have there, it's going to come all the way to the front, all the way to the back, right? There is also incremental ones, but we won't get into that right now. We're just going to talk about two front, two back right now. So if we look at this first checkpoint, so we ask the question, for this first checkpoint: what happens if we forget to do the parentheses to the back, right? So in line 15 right here, if we forget to put those parentheses and we run that, what's actually going to happen? Well, I'll sit here and click just to notice, but because we haven't put those parentheses, it's thinking that you can't actually put any value into there, so it's not going to allow us to do that to the back method, or to back method. So we're never going to be able to push that star to the back, so we can never vice versa pull it to the front, because it's not being manipulated at all. That star is in the front is true value. It's always going to stay true. It's never going to get switched to false, so we're never going to be able to actually switch it back and forth. So code runs, but nothing happens when we press the mouse. Okay. So now there are quite a few methods that are actually built into UCS Academy, and some of them are kind of fun, definitely interesting and everything. The first one we're going to talk about is our hits method. Our hits method is kind of cool because with hits, it actually sets it up to where the way that we've written it up here in this code right here, we have the star, and then our hits, we're inputting two arguments. We're inputting the value of the x and y of the cursor itself, of the mouse pointer itself, right? So wherever this mouse pointer is currently, we're checking to see if it's touching that star at all. So as soon as we touch that star, boom, we have a hit, right? So we move the mouse pointer around, and we can actually see every time that the mouse pointer actually hits the star, it's going to register that it's actually hitting, right? The next method that we also have is hit shape. And hit shape is definitely cool because now we can assign values of shapes to each other, and we can use shapes to see if they're hitting each other. This is especially cool in game making because let's say we have a bullet and it's hitting something, you can kill it. But here, as soon as that circle hits that star, it actually does a change, right? So anytime it touches, boom, 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 right? Now, the way that it's set up, we're calling up the dot, and then we're saying hit shape star, but it asks in this next checkpoint, what happens if we switch? If we switch the words, and we put star and dot instead, right? So what happens if we switch this up? And guess what? It's not going to change anything because it's basically checking to see if these two shapes are hitting each other. So even though we've switched the names, it's still checking the same thing. So absolutely nothing happens. No, and something does happen. We just nothing changes. These do the same thing. So nothing changes. These do the same thing is what we need to set up for that. Okay, so just understand that this monster that we're using, Python, is what's called object-oriented programming, and we want to kind of define some vocabulary for you. So basically, what all these shapes that we've been using in CMU-CS Academy are effectively called objects because objects have properties that you can do to them as well as methods that you can do to them. So all these shapes that we have are objects because we can apply properties and methods to them. Much just like our app itself is an object itself because we can apply properties to it, we can apply methods to it as well. So do know that our app is an object and all the shapes that we have created are objects as well. Okay. So now we are going to go on to more shape methods, and even though it's optional, I wanted to go over it because, like I said, the methods are definitely a cool thing.